Jambo. I'm Lenrod Nzulu Baraka, founder of Afro-Caribbean Spiritual Teaching Center and Children of Kush Publications. These two organizations are dedicated to creating a paradigm shift in Black thought. The main objective of these organizations is to challenge people of African ancestry to think outside the box of Eurocentric thought. We seek to do this through the publication of articles which are circulated in the African Diaspora and on the continent of Africa. We also publish videos like this one on social media, as well as we attempt to achieve our objectives through the publication of books via Children of Kush Publications. Now, Children of Kush Publications is currently expanding and promoting a series of books entitled Secrets Your Church Won't Tell You. This series of books are available on the Amazon Kindle store, and they're available in both hard copy and in ebook. To see a full listing of my books, you can go to amazon.com/author/Leonard Phillips. I'll repeat that, amazon.com/author/Leonard Phillips, or you can go to the Amazon Kindle store and type in Leonard Phillips. You can also type in Lenrod Nzulu Baraka, or you can type in the title of any book you're interested in reading. To watch more of my videos, you can also go to the YouTube browser and type in Leonard Phillips and just look for someone who looks somewhat like me, since there are a number of Leonard Phillips on YouTube. I'm going to take a quick break at this point. When we come back, I'm going to be discussing our topic for today. So don't you go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back. In this edition, we want to begin by doing a little bit of housekeeping in terms of corrections. And as I said in the past, when I go over the videos and I find something which is a little off, I would try to tweak it and correct it so as to make the presentations and the information which we share as accurate as possible. And in this week, there are two corrections I would like to make. The first one has to do with a statement I made when I was talking about the founding fathers of the US and their association with slavery. Now, it is very true that most of the founding fathers of the US were slaveholders. However, I did create the impression that Abraham Lincoln was also a slaveholder, and that, of course, is not correct. Abraham Lincoln was not a slaveholder. As a matter of fact, he was the American president who signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which brought an end to slavery in the US. So, for the record, I would like to state Abraham Lincoln was not a slaveholder. However, as I did intimate in the presentation, he did reflect many of the racist views that were held by Caucasians in that period of time. Then he was accused by Stephen Douglas, his opponent in the Illinois race for the U.S. Senate. Abraham Lincoln stated, and I quote, he said, "I will say then that I am not, nor ever have been, in favor of bringing about in any way the social and political equality of the white and black race. There must be a position of superior and inferior, and I am in favor of having the superior position assigned to the white race." So even though he was not a slaveholder, Abraham Lincoln did share many of the racist ideas that were in vogue in that particular period of time. Abraham Lincoln, he was opposed to Black people being given the right to vote. He opposed Black people serving on juries. He did not believe that Black people should be able to hold office. And of course, he also did not believe in any freaky stuff between Black men and white women. In other words, he did not believe in any interracial relationships. The other thing that I would like to draw attention to by way of correction, then I was talking about racialized voter suppression that has become so very prevalent in the US today. I made mention of the 15th Amendment, and I talked about Section 5, creating the impression that Section 5 has to do with the 15th Amendment. Now, Section 5 has to do with the Voting Rights Act of 1965. In that bill, what happened was, because of the fact that even though the 15th Amendment had been passed soon after emancipation, Black people were able to make some forward strides during the period known as Reconstruction. Many Black people were voted into political office in terms of senators and other political positions. However, soon after the Reconstruction era got into its strength, there was the withdrawal of the Northern forces from the South. And when that happened, that great compromise resulted then in the rise of groups like the Ku Klux Klan, and then all of the advances that were made by Black people in the Reconstruction era were basically wiped out. Voter suppression was the order of the day as Jim Crow became the law of the land. And it was not until the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that Black people were able then to be able to exercise their franchise to vote, which was officially given to them by the 15th Amendment, but they could not exercise it until around 1965 with the passing of the Voting Rights Act. Now, the fifth clause in the Voting Rights Act of 1965 gave the federal government oversight to ensure that states in the US, especially states in the South, North Carolina, South Carolina, Mississippi, Alabama, those states which had a very strong emphasis in terms of Jim Crow, who were very much into voter suppression. The fifth clause in the Voting Rights Act basically gave the federal government the ability to see over any new laws that were being imposed and to prevent laws that would stop Black people from exercising their right to vote. So basically, I should have talked more about the Voting Rights Act, as that was what was actually gutted in 2013 by the Supreme Court. And it was that gutting of the Voting Rights Act that basically has opened the door for many of these southern states once again to begin to issue voter suppression laws, which are now affecting the access Black people have to the institution of voting in North America. Okay, so we've made those two corrections. Now let's see if we can tie off some loose ends in with respect to the topic that I have been discussing, namely the Bible and whether the Abrahamic faiths constitute a path to Black liberation. Now let's just review quickly some of the points that I have already made. We said that the Bible gave permission to Jews to engage in human trafficking and the enslavement of Hamitic Canaanites, strangers that dwelt with Israel. And remember, some of the strangers who dwelt with the Israelites would have been that mixed multitude of Egyptians who came out of Egypt at the time of the Exodus. We also said that the curse of Canaan, the son of Ham, condemned the descendants of Canaan and by extension the descendants of Ham to a fate of slavery in the service of Semites and Caucasians. We also made mention of the fact that the holy books of the Abrahamic faiths support the notion of Black inferiority and provide a basis for the enslavement of the darker-skinned peoples of the earth. Now, in this concluding presentation, I want to explore some alternatives to the Abrahamic faiths. You know, it's one thing to curse the darkness, but more important than cursing the darkness is to shine in a light so that people can find their way in the darkness. So in this last presentation, we want to look at some alternatives for people of African ancestry who may choose to exit the Abrahamic faiths. Now, one of the things I really like about the Nation of Islam is that the Nation of Islam takes the religion of Islam and adapts it to the liberation needs of the global Black collective. Members of the Nation of Islam are encouraged to maintain an interest in their Black identity and Black history. As a matter of fact, when you listen to ministers in the Nation of Islam, they talk just as much about issues which are affecting Black people as they do about Islam itself. As a matter of fact, that was one of the things that attracted me to spending some time with the Nation of Islam, studying the writings of Elijah Muhammad and getting familiar with my hero Malcolm X. Sometimes when you listen to Minister Farrakhan, when he preaches, he almost sounds like a Christian minister. And very often, I do not say this lightly, very often Minister Farrakhan preaches Jesus better than a lot of Christian ministers. And I think that's a very positive thing. Now, ministers in the Nation of Islam, when you listen, you will see that they are versed in the Old Testament, they're versed in the New Testament, what's called the Injil, and of course, they're also versed in the Quran. So they bring together the best of all three of the traditions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and then use these ideas to further the liberation struggle of people of African ancestry. And that's a very commendable project on the part of the Nation of Islam. And so I would like to suggest that Black people who are exiting the Abrahamic faiths can follow suit, join from many different religious traditions, including traditional African religion. I like to call this the banquet table model of spirituality. Now, when you go to a banquet and all of the food is laid out on the table, unless you are a person with a very big appetite, you will not try to pack every single dish that you see on the table onto your plate. What you will do if you happen to be a wise person is you will choose the things which you know to be best for you, what's best for your constitution. For example, if you know that you have a particular ailment, take for example, heart disease, you would know that those dishes on the table that are very rich in cholesterol, those are not for you. If you suffer with high blood pressure, things that are full of salt and grease would not be the best choice. If you are diabetic, You would know to leave all the sweet stuff for some other person to eat. You leave those only, choose the things that you know are best for you. Like I always say, with every aspect of life, common sense and reason must be the prevailing ethic. We must use common sense and good judgment, even when it comes to choosing a religion for yourself. So that is one model I like to introduce people to, the banquet table model, where you choose those aspects of the religion that are suitable, that are workable for you, things that would help to build you up, to make you stronger. Not everything in a particular denomination or religion will make you stronger. There are some aspects of religion that could bankrupt you. There's some aspects that could result in you losing your health. There's some aspects that could result in you even losing your mind, your peace of mind. So when choosing a religion, you have to be very careful in terms of how you relate to all of the different aspects. Not every single aspect of the religion may be in your best interest. And of course, I like to remind people of African ancestry that we are people who need our resources. And very often you find that many religions attempt to liberate you from your resources so that the leaders and the founders of these religions can become rich while you, the member, becomes poor. So you have to use your reason, your logic, your common sense in terms of what you are choosing in religion. Now, Black people historically have been separated by so many different factors. In Africa at present, they tell me that there are over 2,000 living languages. Imagine that. 2,000 living languages. It means that there are people in Africa who speak languages that nobody else probably understands, apart maybe from them and maybe some of their closest neighbors who may have similar vocabulary. Now, that creates a problem, of course, and it is interesting that many people are saying that the African continent needs a common language that can be spoken by everybody across the board in Africa. And at present, perhaps the language that most people seem to think fits the bill would be Swahili. And I look forward to the day when here in the Caribbean, we not only will be thinking in terms of teaching Mandarin at university level and teaching Mandarin in the secondary and maybe the primary level, but also we would incorporate an African language, probably Swahili, into the curriculum from the primary school level, so that we here in the Caribbean can once again at least become reacquainted with one of the original languages of our African ancestors. Now, in addition to the 2,000 living languages, there are over 30,000 different ethnic groups. Now, recently I was watching an episode of Godfather of Harlem, which is a series which looks at the a crime family in Harlem, which was led by Bumpy Johnson. And one of the things that Bumpy Johnson wanted to do was to unite all of the Black crime families in Harlem. And his reason for that was he believed that once the Black families came together, it would give them a better chance to fight with the Italians. And when he was making the suggestion to the other Black crime bosses in Harlem, he made mention of the fact that this unity was the reason that allowed Europeans and Arabs to go into Africa and to take over the continent of Africa. Now, if you read Chancellor Williams's Destruction of Black Civilization, you will notice that Chancellor Williams refers to the point of disunity as one of the major reasons why Black civilizations were defeated and generally why Black people were so easily conquered by the Europeans and the Arabs as they made their way into the African continent. Now, the new religions introduced by Europeans and Arabs laid the foundation for even more separation. There were already lots of different factors that separated Africans. Now, with the introduction of Europeans and Arabs into Africa, you had the ground was laid for even more separation among African peoples, and the same thing obtains also in the Caribbean. Africans were forced to choose between traditional religion, between Christianity, Islam, and to some extent, Judaism. Now, Christianity is divided into Catholic, Protestant, and Orthodox sects. The different sects in Christianity further divided an already divided African continent. So whether it was Islam, whether it was Christianity, whether it was whatever religion went into Africa, the introduction of the new religion created even greater divisions among the African peoples. Africans who embrace Islam had to choose between either being Sunni Muslims or being Shiite Muslims. If they embraced Christianity, they had to choose between whether they would be Catholic or whether they would be Protestant. If they chose to be Protestants, it was which denomination in Protestantism. They tell me that in Protestantism, they could be, or rather in Christianity, there could be as many as 45,000 different denominations globally. So can you imagine if just a quarter of those denominations went into Africa, and Africans then had to choose between these different denominations, adding to the 2,000 languages and the 30,000 ethnic groups. Now we have religion as another factor which further divided the African people. In most cases, these different sects in Christianity and Islam were at war with each other. And Africans, both on the continent and in the diaspora, did what we here in the Caribbean like to call pick up fire rage. In other words, if you have a family and two members of the family are at war, then each respective family will pick up for their member, and that fight could continue then for a long time between the families. It may have had nothing to do with the others, but because two members were at war from two families, each side pick up what we like to call fire rage for their respective family member. And so as Africans adopted Christianity, as they adopted Islam, many of the conflicts within these religions were transferred to the Africans. And so the Africans also then started the same conflicts among themselves that were found among Catholics and Protestants, among Sunni and Shia, and this further then added to the division. Now, it was kind of funny, even though I really shouldn't say it was funny, I should more say it was alarming to hear about suicide bombings in Uganda and terrorist activity in Kenya. I really would have thought that something like suicide bombing, that this is something that would not have taken root in the Black community, in the Black Muslim community, but obviously I'm wrong. It makes me wonder if maybe there are not a few Black people who are right now thinking about joining the Ku Klux Klan. It seems as though we are very, very, very much influenced by other people, their religion, and the conflicts that other people are having. And rather than staying clear of these conflicts, we seem to be very inclined to become a part of these conflicts. So we have in Eastern Africa, we have the development of Al-Shabaab, you have Boko Haram in Nigeria, in Chad in Nigeria. All of these are conflicts that exist in Islam that seem to have been reproduced among African Muslims on the continent of Africa. Now, another model is what I like to call the non-denominational model. And just like the banquet table model, It would allow Africans and their descendants in the diaspora to draw from the best principles found in the many different Christian denominations, found whether it's in Sunni Islam or Shiite Islam, in Judaism, in Hinduism, whatever religion we may find ourselves attracted to. What we can do is draw the very best principles from these religions and then use these best principles to guide us in our spiritual quests and in our day-to-day living. Africans and their descendants in the diaspora can also pioneer in the development of new spiritual traditions that are eclectic and even synchronistic, bringing together elements from different denominations and religions. It has always been said that Africans are a very spiritual people, and as a spiritual people, there's absolutely nothing wrong with Africans developing their own spiritual systems. If other people can develop spiritual systems, why can't Africans also develop their own spiritual system? Now, in addition to drawing from the traditions of Europeans and Arabs and Indians, Africans also have their own rich religious traditions from traditional African religion. And this is an area that many Africans in the diaspora especially could avail themselves of, getting to learn a little bit more about the traditional African religious tradition that were practiced by our ancient African ancestors. In the Caribbean, we have things like Voodoo, Santeria, Orisha Shango, Kambele, Rastafari, the Rastafarian group. We have many innovative developments where what many of our enslaved ancestors did, not forgetting their African traditions, what they did is they created a form of synchronism between the African religion and what was introduced to them, whether it was Catholicism or whether it was some other form of spirituality that they were introduced to in our sojourn here in the West. So we can become innovators in the field of religion, developing our own spiritual traditions as well. Now, as we explore even in the field of traditional African religion, I always like to tell people that even with traditional African religion, common sense and reason should be the order of the day. It is not every single idea that may be good for you, but what you can do is, as you study and you find things that seem plausible, that seem reasonable, that seem to work for you, you can incorporate those into your religious outlook and practice. I've come to the end of this section of Rebirth of Black Civilization. And you would have noticed that I spent a lot of time looking at spirituality in this section. There are lots of other sections that in the future I will look at: economics, technology, education, what are some of the changes that we need to make in order to bring the race of Black people back to a position of prominence in the world. But I felt that spirituality, that is one area that we definitely need to look at. And that's the foundation that we need to put in place so that we can build a structure that we can all be proud of as we progress as a nation or as a race of people. I sincerely hope that this series and the series that will follow in the future will challenge your thinking and give you the motivation which you need to do some more exploration into the history, the culture, the language, and of course, the religion of our ancestors. As always, thanks for watching this video. Feel free to share this video, and you can go back, watch the ones that went before, share those as well with your friends and neighbors, both in the diaspora and on the continent as well. As always, Asante Sana Na Kwahili, which means thank you very much and goodbye.